How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. How about yourself?
Same to you. Thank you for coming. Guys, we have CEO and founder of Tiplay, Mehmet, um, who will tell us a little more on how to scale a game dev studio in hyper casual games. Thank you. Let's listen.
Thank you, Alex. So, hello, everybody. My name is Umut. I'm one of the co founders and the CEO of Tiplay Studio. And today, I would like to talk to you about how to scale a game studio. So not necessarily a hyper casual game studio, but how to scale a game studio in general. But of course, I'm going to highlight hyper casual because this is Hyper Game Conference. Before starting my presentation, I would like to thank the HGC team for a really smooth and amazing panel. Everything is going very smoothly, and I really love the content. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Paulina, and thanks everybody for this great job. So let's get started, guys. First of all, let me start with T-Play Studio and a little bit of background about it so you know who is talking. T-Play Studio is the biggest hyper-casual game development ecosystem in Turkey. We have a studio with 36 employees at this point, and we have three internal studios inside Studio A, Studio B, and Studio R. And in addition to this, we also have an accelerator program that we run with Rolik slash Zynga globally. And this is in a nutshell what we are. So let me get started, guys. What is hyper casual? Of course, everybody knows this in hyper games conference, but I just wanted to underline the basics of it so that we can focus on the fundamentals. So first of all, it's simple. Second of all, the business model is free to play. So ad revenue is the main revenue generating resource, and fast growth is very important. So everything is going really fast. About 45% of growth is normal, for example, for hypercasual, but it is insane in other industries and other genres. So just to give you an insight about hypercasual, so these are the most important things about hypercasual. What about other genres? What is the difference between hypercasual and other genres, such as like casual or RPG, idle, etc., more sophisticated gameplays or different audiences? So the most important thing is the target audience is different. When you're developing a game for hyper casual, you're targeting everybody. When I say everybody, I mean everybody. So there's no, for example, micro targeting on Facebook. Generally speaking, like, it's more complicated than that, but you can think it as if it is like that. So we are targeting everybody, female, male, 15 years old, 65 years old. They're all in the basket. Second of all, the business and publishing models are slightly different. For example, it's pretty normal for a large studio to get funding for a game's demo, like 500K or $1 million, just to create a demo, something just to give it a try within 6 months or so, or maybe a year, and then completely changing the mind and maybe even killing it. So that's not how it's done in hyper casual. In hyper casual, there are publishers and developers as well, but it's mostly based on market tests of prototypes and the results, metrics that are measured from those tests. So that's also different. I just want to underline the difference because it's gonna change how the way we scale a studio. And lastly, financing. In hyper casual world right now, financing is not a problem. In other words, you can find money. That's a fact. So if you're a good studio, a good developer, you can find a way to finance your development procedures. However, it's not like that in other genres. Sometimes financing, fundraising rounds can take months, or sometimes even years. I've seen that. So these are the differences that I wanted to underline. The first thing, when we scale any studio, let alone hypercasual, like anything, the most important thing is timing. Because if you're not doing the right thing at the right time, it's hard to succeed because of the fact that the zeitgeist or the nature of time doesn't require it yet. A good example would be Facebook. If Facebook was 2 years later, for example, as a startup, that or 2 years early, that may not be as successful as it is now. It's the same with game studios. If you are a great hyper casual publisher in 2013, the genre even didn't exist then, so that was kind of too early. But if you are focusing on something really hard, something saturated, or something very sophisticated right now, maybe that's not the right timing. But these are like really, really specific and complicated problems. I just want to underline what we need to focus on. So the timing for the right genre. Where am I going? Is this the right time for this genre? These questions are very important. For example, for hyper casual, it is the right time. You may be a little late, maybe not early, but a little late. That's number one question when it comes to timing. The other thing is how fast you should build your team, how fast you should develop your games, how fast you should start scaling. These questions are very important, and how frequently you develop your prototypes, for example, or how frequently you hire someone. All these questions has to do with the goals you set. So firstly, like in my mind, the first thing that has to happen is the right timing. That's a given for anything that has to do with growth in my mind. And entrepreneurship is of course related with that. So if you're not doing the right thing at the right time, no matter how good of a team you have, no matter how motivated you are, no matter how much investment you have, um, you won't be successful. So after you make sure that you're doing the right thing, right timing, you're attacking or on the right thing at the right time. In other words, everything else comes afterwards. So now it's time to set goals. And when you are setting goals, you have to make sure that you have different aspects of goals. For example, for team growth, how big should I be at the beginning? How big should I be in 6 months? How big should I be in 5 years, in 10 years, or 3 years? These are all right questions. I have a mind exercise for this. I always think about in terms of contrast when it comes to goal setting for team growth. In other words, I think about next week and then I think about 10 years from now, for example. That kind of gives a back and forth for your mind to realize if it's doable. And another trick I use is reverse engineering kind of way of thinking. For example, when I think about, okay, I'm going to be 256 people in 2024, for example. So if I go back 1 year, 2020, how big am I? Is it still 256 or is it 200? 1 year earlier, is it 200 or 100? So if you think like this, you're going to see a graph and you're going to decide if it's realistic or not. This is not to define everything from the beginning. This is just to create a plan, set milestones to get you going. This is very important to understand. We are dealing with inertia here. It's really hard to get things started at the very beginning, but it's really easy once you get going. So I think it was one of the American presidents, I didn't remember who he is, but he says, planning is everything, the plan is nothing. So the plan is not important, but the fact that you're planning it, you're planning your future, that's very important. So when you think about goal setting, you also should think about the capacity dimension, like how many prototypes should I be producing for, let's say, hyper casual. So For this presentation, since this is Hyper Games Conference, I'm gonna use hyper casual as the main genre. But also, I wanna, compare it with, or if you may, A/B with other genres as well. So for hyper casual, for example, is it okay to have 5 prototypes a month, or 10 prototypes, or three? Is it better to have 10 prototypes with medium quality or 5 prototypes with high quality? That kind of goal setting is important at the beginning. And also exit strategy. This is one of the things that I'm surprised with the most when it comes to industry standards. Most gaming entrepreneurs don't have an exit strategy. They just go with the flow, and I don't think that's a good tactic when it comes to growth. I think you should have a strategy. And I also included includes no exit there, because just because you don't want to exit doesn't mean that you don't have an exit strategy. That's an exit strategy. You can say like, I'm not gonna sell my company. I'm gonna run it. I'm gonna release AAA games, and I'm gonna don't even go IPO. I'm just gonna stay there and enjoy myself. And there are companies like that. There are companies that has to do with gaming technology who never IPO'd or exited. So, and even studios like that. So that's okay. However, if you don't have a destination, no matter how fast the wind is blowing, your sail is not going to get you anywhere, because you're chasing your tail. Doesn't matter how fast you go. So you have to have an exit strategy at the very beginning. This can change. Again, the plan is nothing, planning is everything. This can change. So make sure that you think about this at the very, very beginning, guys. Are you gonna sell your company to someone else? Are you gonna raise funds and then maybe get acquired? Are you gonna be a part of a bigger ecosystem in other way? Are you gonna go IPO? These are all on the table, and nothing is right or wrong. These are just goals to set at any given time. And this is for hyper casual and other genres. This is for all gaming industry studios, in my humble opinion. The main idea, the main focus about improving your growth, your capacity, your efficiency is always about these three things: ideation, creativity, and development. This is very important. And if you improve these sets of features in your systems, in your mechanisms, in your strategies, in your wisdom, in your vision, the rest is going to follow. Production is very important. I put mass production at the beginning, then I changed it to, in parentheses, mass, because you may not be a mass production company if you want to focus on, let's say, hybrid casual games or idle games or puzzle games. So it's not always about mass production. For hyper casual, it is about mass production, because hyper casual is like a little bit like fishing. Like, you have ideas and everything, that's great, and you have methodologies that you use, that's awesome, and tools, etc., and coaching, all that, strategic partners. But at the end of the day, it all is about the metrics you receive. So it's all about data. It's all about people, what people say. And that's not predictable. That's not always predictable. And even if it's predictable, it's not easy to predict. So it's always about, when it comes to hyper casual, it's always about releasing the right amount of prototypes with the right amount of quality, and creating a sustainable model, and to scale this for the long term. So you have to make sure that you have all these in your production mentality. If you're not mass producing something, if you're just focusing one thing at a time, that's more like an agency approach, and that's also okay for a lot of genres, and that's actually the main core methodology for a lot of genres. Again, you have to make sure how you maintain quality, how you sustain the team, how you deal with turnover, etc., and when necessary, how you scale. Strategy is a fancy word, and a lot of people use this for a lot of different reasons. There's no right or wrong way of defining it. Actually, in my mind, strategy is doing the right thing at the right time so that you get the highest amount of benefits in total, not in short term or midterm or long. In total, you have to have the highest benefit. When you play chess, for example, this is why I put it here. When you play chess, sometimes you let other player win a little bit to get a better position or get a better strategic advantage, right? Sometimes you have to act like this, and it comes to vision, milestones, and iteration. So you have to make sure that you understand your goals, as I said, and you always keep in mind three main things: creativity, ideation, and development. And on top of that, you have a strategy to reach that destination. And that requires a good vision. You cannot just look at one area. If it's just hyper casual, for example, I don't think it's a smart way. Focus is always good, but you have to look at the bigger picture. So this is why I mentioned, like, let's say exit strategy. If you don't have it, that's a burden on you now. Milestones is very important. When you grow a studio, when you scale a studio, you have to make sure that you set milestones for yourself, for your leaders, for the production line, for the games. Milestones are important, and they all need to be measurable. So creating a great game in 5 months is not a good milestone, because what is, excuse me, a great game? And iteration, obviously, I would say lean startup methodology explains everything about iteration and why we need to use it. So we have to be a lean game studio that changes itself, shape shifts itself based on the metrics and feedback it receives. And it's not just games. I'm talking about the structure of the company. I'm talking about, the tactics the company uses. I'm talking about your approach. I'm talking even about the tools that you use. And this is a good example of how it should be. This is the structure of Tiplay Studio. And I just put XYZ because, I don't want to give an idea to you that this is the right way of doing it. But this is, as you see, very flexible and elastic. And, you have to have this plasticity in terms of structure in order to be able to flexible and lean, because this is changing constantly in Tiplay Studio, because you cannot have the same structure when you're 3. You cannot have the structure that you have when you're 3 when you're 36, for example. So you have to adapt. You have to make sure that you get feedback and change constantly and try different things. And there's no way of knowing what is right. So you have to give it a try. A/B tests are, amazing when it comes to that. So you just try one thing, and if it doesn't work, try one thing else, change one thing about it, try it again. If it gets better, awesome. If it gets worse, okay, kill it and go back to zero. This is how I do it. There's no right or wrong, but I highly recommend it because it gives you a very lean structure. Another important thing when scaling a company is the strategic partnerships. And when I talk about strategic partnership, most people think just about publishers. And these are, yeah, publishers are great strategic partners for sure, but it's not limited with publishers. Accelerator programs such as OFON, the accelerator program we run with Rolex/Zynga, is can be a good strategic partner for you. But it's not limited with that even. It's It can be an investor, it can be a key person, high influence person, it can be a good co-founder, so that has a lot of connections, for example. So you have to build your strategic partnerships to improve the core of your startup, the core of your game studio. And market intelligence is key here. It's very important. If you don't understand the market, you understand nothing, because everything I told you so far is based on the metrics we get from people, and that's the intelligence of people. Actually, it's the common intelligence of what people want, and we call it market intelligence. So there are a lot of tools for market intelligence, for example, like Epany, Sensor Tower, Game Analytics, etc. So there's a zillion different tools, but it's not enough just by data. You have to give meaning to data, and so that it becomes insight, so that it becomes wisdom, and you have to collect it so that it becomes compounding know-how. And that's where a strategic partnership comes into place. We were lucky, for example, we have been working with Rolex since day one, and I would like to thank them again for all the opportunities they created for us. And I Now I can say, thanks to them, that a strategic partner can change worlds. For example, if you have a strategic partner that doesn't have a lot of mutually beneficial opportunities with you, they don't share the same growth goals with you, they just need a game from you, that's an asymmetric relationship, and that can create a negative feedback loop. You should always be chasing positive feedback loops. In other words, you should always be chasing win-win strategies with strategic relationships, so that when you gain something, your strategic partner gains something, and they trust you more, and then they carry you higher, and so forth, so on. So you both end up being better than before. So 1 + 1 = 3. The same thing with development. If you have, for example, a strategic partner who can improve your production skills, development skills, game design skills, you know, QA testing skills, or um, art skills, art abilities, that's awesome, and that is also very important. Most game studios, in my humble opinion, kind of underestimate this importance of this. But I highly value, actually, strategic partnerships with people or organizations who can improve our development power, development muscles. And lastly, financing. And this is not just investors or publishers. Financing can be in different ways. For example, if your financer want something from you for the long term, that is great, because now you both have long-term goals, and that creates a strategic relationship, and that's symmetrical because you're chasing the same long-term goal. However, you have long-term goals, and your financer have short-term goals and can change mind whenever it wants. That's an asymmetrical relationship, even if you get great amounts of money, because you won't with a contest you win, or with the compensation you get from prototypes you deliver. This is not how you make money. You make money with tens of millions of game downloads, or hundreds of millions of game downloads. And even more importantly, the games that you will be delivering in 3 years from now, like after the fact that you end up scaling, after the fact that you become successful, it will be easier for you to find financing. You can even get credit lines from, Facebook, Apple, or banks, or other organizations, etc. Unity. However, you need financing right now for the right cause, for the right goal. So make sure you create that strategic relationship with that terms. Otherwise, People are buying your ideas. People are buying your games. People are buying your success for the short term goals. Don't let that happen because you're not a subcontractor. So, another important um, aspect of scaling is remote work. You should be ready for it. It's not tomorrow, it's happening. Right now, for example, Tiplay Studio uses a tool called online workspace, and we can work from home using that tool. We can manage our projects, prototypes, we can communicate, we can even have our professional growth handle in there, meaning that we can teach each other things, peer instruction, so forth, so on. And that's also the same for OFON, the accelerator program. We are ready because it's today, it's not tomorrow, it's happening. Future is remote, so you have to be ready for it. And thank God that we are working in game industry because it's very suitable for remote work. And actually, it's my personal opinion that it actually works better. The one major risk about remote work, and I have to mention that as well, is the relationship between juniors and seniors, but there are ways to figure that out as well. And it's worth taking that risk. Speaking of risks, um, the biggest risk, in my opinion, for a studio that is scaling is QA. Most people underestimate the importance of QA. If you're not spending 20% of your power, money, time, energy, etc., to QA, you're doing it wrong. Turnover, because of the fact that it's a high growth industry and there are a lot of supply from schools, etc. Turnover is high, so you got to create a great company culture to start with. And wrong business model. If you rely everything on the money that you get for your prototypes, that's a bad start. Let me put it that way. And opportunities, let's finish with that. You have to think about the advantage you can create with the failures you have at all times. That's called growth mindset. So you have to create an opportunity for growth for every single failure or for every single obstacle you face so that you keep growing. So that's the main thing about opportunities. Growth mindset is required. It's a must. Another thing is trends. I mentioned TikTok earlier in the other panel. There are a zillion different channels of trend setting, and you should be in it. You should be there right now. And lastly, you should always be thinking about creating unique values, differentiating factors. What makes you different than the other studios? And I can talk about this for more than an hour about Tiplay Studio or off on the Accelerator program. So you always should think about the differentiating factor. And this applies to games as well. So I think the timing was good. So thank you guys for listening. So let me check the questions. And Alex, are you there?
Yes, yes, I came to say thank you for your speech, both inspiring and informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Um,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
and also, do you see questions in Q&A section, or I can read them for you, picking the ones I like?
Could you please do that because I don't see the questions right now.
Yeah, of course, of course. Good. The first one I'd like you to answer. Can you give some basic examples regarding exit strategy? What are some things we should be doing different given we want to exit or not?
That's a great question. Thank you. For example, if you want to be acquired by a company, you should start thinking about being acquirable to start with. A good example would be Stillfront. Stillfront has been acquiring a lot of companies. And think about why they're doing it. There's a strategy there. So if you want to be acquired by a company like Stillfront, be acquirable. And that has to do with everything that has to do with growth. In other words, your accounting should be ready. Your strategy should be ready. When they come talk to you, you should be able to tell how you're going to be administering the company from taking it from 1 to 100, because taking it from 0 to 1 is one thing, but 1 to 100 is different. So these are different skills. So make sure that you create that. You have to have a solid strategy based on product line, capacity, HR, so forth, so on. But you have to think about it. That's the most important thing. Most people don't do this. Simply, they don't think about, put yourself in the shoes of an investor or a person who is going to buy you. Put yourself, I'm sorry, in the shoes of an M&A expert. What would they ask you? Be ready when they do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The next question: how to look out for trends?
Oh, that's a hard one. So there are a lot of tools, from game refinery to app any, and I mentioned a lot other. Mobile action is another one, for example. But I always tell my colleagues that they should be basically in TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. You should immerse yourself with social media. That's the future. Still is the future, and try to get out of your bubble. Because if you just see your feed from Facebook, for example, Facebook is customizing, personalizing your feed, so you're just seeing people like you and content you would like. That became problematic in the elections in the US, for example, and they abused it. So you should convert it to an advantage. And for example, open an account on TikTok and do nothing. Don't filter anything, don't remove anything, don't like anything, and see the common feed. That's a solid tactic, for example, and I use it. Sometimes the things you see will shock you. That's the price you pay. But at the end, you will see what people are watching.
Cool. Thank you. The next one: what do you do when your team is not showing improvement in the games being made?
Great question. Hard question. That's the difference between a leader and an administrator. Let me tell you the wrong thing first. What would an administrator do? A manager. They would put awards, and they would also put threatening things like firing some people, etc., to create a fear-based or award-based mentality to improve certain metrics, and they will start measuring those metrics. And I always say that this is wrong. And let me give you one example. They say, I don't know if this story is true, but they say at some point in New York City, and I lived there for 7 years, so I know that it's a problem. Rats like were everywhere, like millions of rats, right? So the mayor said, okay, if you bring us the tail of one rat, we're gonna give you 1 cent. So 100 rats, $1. Okay, to make sure that people kill rats so that they get rid of rats. What happened was completely opposite of the expectation. It exploded. If it was 2 million, it became 20 million. Why? Because people created rat farms, because they are feeding rats, they're cutting the tails and giving it to the mayor and getting money. What I'm trying to say is, if you create a fear-based or award-based structure to improve the performance of your teams, you may be chasing the wrong metric, and those metrics may improve, but the overall efficiency, overall performance would go low. The other way of doing it is the right way, in my opinion, and that's leadership. And that's making sure everybody believes in the same thing you believe. And that starts with the company culture. You have a company culture, you believe in something, and then you make people walk with you, even though you get beaten on the way, even though it's rainy, even though it's cold, even though sometimes it's hard to even manage walking. You keep walking, and you make people walk with you, and you give that belief, motivation. That's the right way of doing it. So in those days, just talk to them, say, here are the mistakes I see in you, and here are the mistakes I see in myself. How we can fix it. Be vulnerable about your failures as well. If you accept your failures, people are gonna see that it's okay to make mistakes. And a startup should make 100 mistakes to get one right thing. So just think about it. 99 failures create one right decision. You should be always focusing on that. That's my answer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Cheers.
much. The next one. Do you think hypercasual is still significantly advantageous compared to other genres for small team, even though the market and competition is very crowded today?
Yeah. Yes. It's not as easy as it was in terms of the entry barrier, but it's a great question. It still is very easy to get in the industry if you're good. And if you're not good, if you're not getting in, improve yourselves. I cannot see any studio who is good in hypercasual, who is good that cannot find funding, for example. If you're good and if you're producing hypercasual prototypes, you get by. I don't see this in other industries. This is not like this in fintech. This is not like this in health tech or cybersecurity. It's really hard everywhere. It's slightly better in hyper casual because now the demand is bigger than the supply. Even as we speak, even now, the demand is bigger. This is why it's growing really fast. So yes, it's not as easy as it was a few years back, but it is still easy. So I would double down on hyper casual if you're a 2 people team, 3 people team, just to get your foot in the industry.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Probably, we're coming to the last question for today.
Sure.
Any tips? How much time is it okay to be held between published game and a game to be published? So the one is published to support, and the
Mhm.
one is under development.
I didn't understand the question. Like,
If you have
can you
two
elaborate?
games, the one
Okay.
is being published and requires updates, and
Mm-hmm.
another one is under development. How to split your time? What is correct in your
Now
opinion?
I understand. Yeah. So the very first month or two is crucial. So soft launching is hard. It can take 2 weeks if you're really good or if the game is slightly simple, but it can take a month or more. So let's say soft launch is held in 2 weeks successfully, and then you launch the game. That's another month or so. It depends. So these 2 months are very important. And after that, you have to stabilize the game. It's again very it can change depending on your efficiency, power, etc. But it can take it a few weeks to a few months, even more. But once the game is stabilized, once you have a good retention, then you can focus on other things, in my opinion, for small teams, that is. If you're a studio like Tiplay Studio, then you can do both. You can do in parallel.
Thank you so much. This is it for today. Your
Awesome.
speech was awesome and answers
Thank you.
absolutely fantastic. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you very much. Thank you for
Thank
listening,
you.
guys. And you can always contact me on LinkedIn. Please feel free to add me. Cheers. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.